The massive space station hung in the void like a metal city. Nexus Station was the largest structure Captain Elena Rodriguez had ever seen. Ships from dozens of alien worlds docked at its hundreds of ports. Some vessels were as big as entire human cities. Others looked like floating crystals or metal insects. All of them made the human ship look tiny. Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, watching through the main window as they approached their assigned docking bay. Her ship was only 200 meters long. Next to the alien giants, it looked like a toy. "Captain, we're getting some interesting radio chatter," said Communications Officer Janet Park. She pressed her earpiece and frowned. "The aliens are talking about us. They don't sound impressed." "What are they saying?" Rodriguez asked. Park listened for a moment. "They're calling our ship cute and wondering if we got lost on our way to a museum." Chief Engineer Marcus Chen shook his head. "If they only knew what this little ship can really do." Rodriguez gave him a sharp look. Chen was right, but they had to keep their secrets. Earth had sent them here to make first contact with the galactic community. The aliens thought humans were just another primitive species trying to join their club. It was better to let them think that for now. The Defiant docked with a soft bump. Through the windows, Rodriguez could see alien workers moving around the docking bay. They wore different types of spacesuits, but they all seemed to be pointing at the human ship and making gestures that looked like laughing. "Weapons Officer Kim, you're with me," Rodriguez said. "Chen, you too. Park, stay here and monitor communications. Record everything, but don't transmit anything without my permission." The three humans walked through the airlock and into the station. The first thing that hit them was the smell. Each alien species had its own scent, and dozens of them mixed together in the recycled air. It wasn't unpleasant, just very different from anything on Earth. The second thing they noticed was how the aliens stared at them. Conversations stopped as they walked by. Some aliens took pictures with devices that looked like floating balls of light. Others just watched with what seemed like amusement. A tall reptilian creature approached them. It walked on two legs and wore a uniform covered in medals and symbols. Its scales were dark green, and its eyes were yellow with vertical pupils like a snake. "You must be the humans," the creature said in perfect English. Its voice was deep and had a hissing quality. "I am Admiral Korvash of the Vaxari Empire. Welcome to civilized space." The way he said civilized made it clear that he didn't think humans belonged in that category. "Captain Elena Rodriguez, representing Earth and the United Earth Space Command," Rodriguez replied. She offered her hand, but Korvash just looked at it with confusion. "Your ship is smaller than I expected," Korvash said. "We were told that humans had achieved space travel, but that little craft barely qualifies as a shuttle. The Defiant has brought us safely across many light years," Rodriguez said calmly. "Size isn't everything." Korvash made a sound that might have been laughing. "In space, size is survival. Your vessel wouldn't last 5 minutes against a real warship." More aliens gathered around them. Rodriguez recognized some of the species from the briefing files Earth had prepared. The crystalline beings were called Zephyrite. They looked like walking diamonds and spoke in musical tones. The insect-like creatures were the Klaxon swarm. They moved in perfect coordination, as if they shared one mind. There were also the ethereals, beings made of pure energy who wore mechanical suits to interact with physical matter. Their suits glowed with different colors that seemed to match their emotions. "Come," Korvash said. "The council is waiting to meet you." They walked through corridors that were clearly built for beings much larger than humans. The ceilings were at least 5 meters high, and the doorways were wide enough for 3 people to walk through side by side. Everything was built to impress, to show power and dominance. The council chamber was enormous. Dozens of alien representatives sat in seats arranged in a large circle. Each species had its own section, with technology suited to their needs. The ethereals floated in energy fields. The Zephyrite sat on platforms that hummed with harmonic frequencies. The Klaxon had built a small hive structure where they could cluster together. At the center of the circle was a smaller area, with 3 chairs that were clearly meant for humans. They looked simple and plain compared to the alien seating arrangements. As the humans took their seats, Rodriguez could hear whispers and comments from around the chamber. Most of the aliens were speaking in their own languages, but the translation devices built into the chamber made sure everyone could understand. "Look how small they are," said a Zephyrite in its musical voice. "Do they even have proper weapons?" "Their ship has no energy shields," added a Klaxon representative. "How do they survive in space?" Perhaps they haven't encountered any real dangers yet, suggested an ethereal. Its suit glowed with what seemed like amusement. Admiral Korvash stood up in his section of the chamber. The room fell silent. Fellow council members, he began, we gather today to welcome a new species to our galactic community. Humanity has recently achieved faster-than-light travel and has requested to join our alliance. He gestured toward the humans with a movement that seemed dismissive. As you can see, they are still in the early stages of technological development. Their ship is small and appears to use primitive propulsion systems. Our scans suggest they rely on kinetic weapons rather than proper energy-based armaments. Rodriguez kept her face neutral, but inside she was taking careful notes. The aliens had tried to scan the Defiant, but they had no idea how much their scans had failed to detect. Humanity's stealth technology was far more advanced than these aliens suspected. Their energy output suggests fusion-based power systems, continued a Klaxon representative. We abandoned such primitive technology over 1,000 years ago. And yet they made it here, Rodriguez said quietly. That should count for something. Korvash looked down at her with what might have been pity. Making it here is not the same as belonging here, little human. Space is dangerous. There are pirates, raiders, and hostile species that would destroy your entire civilization without a second thought. We can defend ourselves, Sarah Kim said. It was the first time the weapons officer had spoken since they arrived. This comment caused a ripple of what sounded like laughter throughout the chamber. Several aliens made gestures that were clearly mocking. With what? Asked an ethereal. Your tiny ship carries weapons that would barely scratch the hull of a real warship. Our dreadnoughts are over 1 kilometer long, Korvash said with pride. They carry enough firepower to glass an entire planet. What could your little craft possibly do against such might? Rodriguez stood up slowly. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of as many alien representatives as she could. We didn't come here to threaten anyone, she said. We came here hoping to learn and to share knowledge. But we also didn't come here to be treated like children. Then perhaps you should not bring toys to a gathering of adults, Korvash replied. The insult was clear, and Rodriguez felt her crew tense beside her. She put a gentle hand on Kim's arm, warning her to stay calm. We understand that our technology might seem different to you, Rodriguez said, but different doesn't always mean inferior. In this case it clearly does, Korvash said. But do not worry. The galactic hegemony is generous to those who recognize their proper place. The way he said it made Rodriguez's blood run cold. This wasn't going to be the friendly first contact that Earth had hoped for. These aliens saw humanity as something to be controlled, not befriended. The real negotiation was about to begin, and Rodriguez had a feeling it wasn't going to go well. The council chamber fell quiet as Admiral Korvash activated a holographic display in the center of the room. Images of space battles filled the air above their heads. Massive alien warships fired devastating energy beams at smaller vessels, destroying them in seconds. This is the reality of galactic politics, Korvash said, his yellow eyes fixed on Captain Rodriguez. The strong protect the weak. The weak serve the strong. It has been this way for over 2,000 years. Rodriguez watched the display without changing her expression, but she noticed that all the weak ships being destroyed looked similar to human vessels. The message was clear. The galactic hegemony maintains peace across 700 star systems, continued a Zephyrite representative. Its crystalline form rang like a bell as it spoke. This peace is only possible because we have the strength to enforce it. What exactly are you offering us? Rodriguez asked. Korvash smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Protection, guidance, a place in the galactic community. He paused. In exchange for certain services, a new hologram appeared showing human worlds. Earth hung in the center, blue and beautiful. Around it were the dozen colony worlds that humanity had established over the past 50 years. Your species shows promise, said an ethereal. Its mechanical suit glowed with colors that suggested satisfaction. You have good reflexes, strong bodies, and you learn quickly. You would make excellent workers. Workers? Chief Engineer Chen spoke for the first time since entering the chamber. Mining operations, construction projects, exploration of dangerous systems, Korvash explained. The kind of work that requires beings who can think but are not valuable enough to risk losing. The insult was delivered so casually that it took Rodriguez a moment to process it. They weren't being offered membership in a galactic community. They were being offered slavery with better marketing. And if we refuse? She asked. The hologram changed again. Now it showed human colonies under attack, cities burning, ships fleeing through space while massive alien dreadnoughts pursued them. Then you would be on your own, Corvash said. Space is full of dangers, pirates, hostile species, natural disasters. Without the hegemony's protection, most new species don't survive their first century in space. That sounds like a threat, Weapons Officer Kim said quietly. It's simply reality, replied a Klaxon representative. The insectoid creature's mandibles clicked as it spoke. We have seen it happen many times. Species that refuse our guidance inevitably face extinction. Rodriguez looked around the chamber. Every alien representative was watching her with the same expression. They had done this before many times. How many species had been forced to make this same choice? What happened to the species that refused? She asked. Some were destroyed by pirates, Corvash said with a shrug. Others fell to plague or natural disaster. A few simply collapsed under the pressure of trying to survive alone in hostile space. And none of this had anything to do with the hegemony. Corvash's smile grew wider. We are a peaceful alliance, Captain Rodriguez. We do not make war on innocent species. The way he said innocent suggested that any species that refused their offer would no longer qualify for that protection. How long do we have to consider your offer? Rodriguez asked. 72 hours, Corvash said. After that, we will assume you have chosen to face the dangers of space alone. The hologram switched to show the view outside Nexus Station. 3 massive Vaxari dreadnoughts hung in space near the station. Each one was over a kilometer long and bristled with weapon systems. Their hulls glowed with the energy of massive plasma cannons. Those are beautiful ships, Rodriguez said, looking up at the display. Each one carries a crew of 5,000, Corvash said with pride. Their main weapons can destroy a moon. Their shields can withstand the explosion of a star. Impressive, Rodriguez replied. They must take a lot of resources to build and maintain. The hegemony has resources from 700 worlds, a Zephyrite said. We can afford to build whatever we need. Rodriguez nodded slowly. I can see why you're confident. She stood up and her crew rose with her. We'll need to discuss this with our government. 72 hours should be enough time. Wise, Corvash said. I hope your leaders are more reasonable than some species we have encountered. As the humans left the chamber, Rodriguez could hear the aliens talking among themselves. The translation system picked up fragments of their conversations. Another, primitive species thinks it can negotiate. They always think they have a choice. At least these ones seem smart, enough to recognize reality. The walk back to their ship felt longer than before. More aliens had gathered in the corridors to stare at them. Some were clearly betting on how long it would take for humanity to surrender. Others seemed to be taking pictures to remember this moment. When they reached the Defiant, Rodriguez was surprised to see that several alien technicians were examining their ship. They had scanners and analysis equipment, trying to understand human technology. Is there a problem? Rodriguez asked one of the technicians, a being that looked like a walking tree with metal parts grafted onto its bark. Routine inspection, the creature replied in a voice like rustling leaves. All new species must have their technology evaluated for safety purposes. Rodriguez knew it wasn't really a safety inspection. The aliens were trying to figure out exactly how primitive human technology was. They wanted to know if humans posed any kind of threat. Find anything interesting? She asked. The technician made a sound that might have been frustration. Your hull composition is unusual. Our scanners cannot penetrate it fully. We use a different metallurgy process, Rodriguez said truthfully. What she didn't mention was that the hull was designed to prevent exactly this kind of scanning. Your weapon systems appear to be kinetic-based, another technician said. This one looked like a large crab with too many eyes. Very primitive. No energy shields detected. We prefer simple, reliable technology, Rodriguez replied. The crab creature made a clicking sound that suggested amusement. Simple is one word for it. After the technicians left, Rodriguez and her crew entered their ship. The airlock sealed behind them with a soft hiss. Captain, Communications Officer Park said as soon as they were alone, I've been monitoring the alien communications. They're convinced we're helpless. What else did you pick up? Rodriguez asked. The dreadnoughts out there aren't just for show, Park said. They have orders to attack us if we try to leave without accepting the hegemony's offer. So we're prisoners, Chen said. Not yet, Rodriguez replied. But close to it. They gathered in the ship's small conference room. Through the windows, they could see the massive alien vessels floating nearby like metal mountains. "Captain," Kim said quietly, "we could send a message to Earth. Warn them about what's happening here." "They're jamming our long-range communications," Park reported. "Nothing gets out without their permission." Rodriguez sat down heavily. The situation was worse than they had thought. Earth had sent them here hoping to establish peaceful contact with an advanced galactic civilization. Instead, they had found a protection racket that spanned hundreds of worlds. "Options?" she asked her crew. "We could try to run," Chen suggested. "The Defiant is faster than it looks." "Those dreadnoughts would catch us before we could jump to hyperspace," Kim said. "And even if we escaped, they know where Earth is now." "We could accept their offer," Park said reluctantly. "At least that would buy time for Earth to prepare." Rodriguez shook her head. "If we accept, Earth becomes their colony. All of humanity becomes their workforce." She looked out at the alien ships again. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy a planet. Humanity had nothing that could stand against them in a straight fight. Or did they? "Kim," Rodriguez said slowly. "Status on our special cargo?" The weapons officer checked her tablet. "Fully operational, Captain. All safety protocols in place. And what are you thinking?" Chen asked. Rodriguez was quiet for a long moment. Earth had sent them here with more than just diplomatic credentials. The Defiant carried something that no one in the galaxy had ever seen before, something that might change the balance of power in this conversation. "I'm thinking," Rodriguez said finally, "that it's time these aliens learned that bigger isn't always better." Captain Rodriguez sealed the conference room and activated the ship's privacy shields. No alien surveillance would be able to listen to what they were about to discuss. "Show me the weapon status," she said to Kim. The weapons officer activated a secure holographic display. Deep in the Defiant's hull, a single torpedo sat in its launch tube. It looked ordinary, almost boring compared to the massive plasma cannons on the alien dreadnoughts, but appearances could be deceiving. "The Singularity torpedo is fully charged and ready," Kim reported. "All containment fields are stable. The quantum gravity generator is operating within normal parameters." Chief Engineer Chen pulled up the technical specifications. "Captain, are you sure about this? We've only tested this weapon in computer simulations. We don't know what will happen if we actually use it." Rodriguez studied the data. The torpedo was humanity's greatest scientific achievement and its most terrible weapon. While the aliens had spent centuries building bigger ships and more powerful plasma cannons, human scientists had focused on understanding the fundamental forces of the universe. The breakthrough had come when Dr. Sarah Chen at the Mars Research Institute figured out how to create artificial gravity fields at the quantum level. By manipulating these fields in just the right way, it was possible to create a tiny black hole that would exist for only a few nanoseconds before evaporating. During those nanoseconds, the gravitational forces would be incredible. Any matter caught in the field would be torn apart at the molecular level. The effect wouldn't just destroy a target, it would unmake it, breaking the very bonds that held atoms together. "The simulations all showed the same result," Rodriguez said. "Complete molecular dissociation of anything within a 50-kilometer radius." "The aliens don't know anything about gravity manipulation," Kim added. "Their technology is all about brute force. Bigger guns, stronger shields, more power. They've never seen anything like this." Communications Officer Park looked nervous. "Captain, if we use that weapon, we'll be starting a war. The entire hegemony will come after Earth. If we don't use it, Earth becomes a slave world," Rodriguez replied. "Either way, there's going to be a conflict. At least this way, we control when and how it starts." She walked to the window and looked out at the 3 dreadnoughts. Each ship represented thousands of years of alien military development. They were proud of their size, their power, their ability to dominate entire star systems. "Park, are you still monitoring their communications?" Rodriguez asked. "Yes, Captain. They're discussing how to divide up the human colonies among the hegemony member species. The Vexari want Earth for its strategic location. The Klaxon want the mining worlds. The Zephyrite are interested in our research stations. They're already dividing us up like property," Chen said angrily. "Captain," Kim said quietly, "there's something else. I've been analyzing the alien ship designs. They're built to intimidate, not to fight efficiently. Those dreadnoughts are huge, but most of their mass is unnecessary. They could build 10 smaller ships with the same firepower for half the resources. Why don't they? Because size equals status in their culture. The bigger your ship, the more important you are. They've let politics override military efficiency. Rodriguez nodded. That explained a lot about the alien attitude. They had been so focused on building impressive ships that they had forgotten the point of having weapons in the first place. What about their defenses? She asked. Energy shields, but they're designed to stop plasma weapons and kinetic projectiles, Kim replied. They've never encountered gravitational attacks. Their shields won't even slow down our torpedo. And their sensors? Primitive compared to ours. They're still using electromagnetic detection systems. They can't see our stealth coating and they have no idea what our weapon really is. Rodriguez made her decision. Prep the torpedo for launch. But first I want to try one more time to resolve this peacefully. She activated the ship's communication system and sent a request for another meeting with Admiral Korvash. The reply came back within minutes. The aliens were eager to hear humanity's surrender. An hour later, Rodriguez found herself back in the council chamber. This time the atmosphere was different. The aliens looked smug and satisfied, like predators who had cornered their prey. Captain Rodriguez, Korvash said with his sharp-toothed smile, I trust you have had time to consider our generous offer. We have, Rodriguez replied. But I wanted to ask you something first. Has any species ever successfully refused your offer? The question seemed to surprise Korvash. Why would they want to? Because some species value freedom more than safety, Rodriguez said. A Zephyrite representative rang like a bell with what sounded like laughter. Freedom is an illusion, human. In space, there is only power and the lack of it. You lack power. How do you define power? Rodriguez asked. The ability to impose your will on others, Korvash said. The ability to destroy those who oppose you. Our dreadnoughts give us that power. What if I told you that our small ship could destroy all 3 of your dreadnoughts? The chamber erupted in what passed for laughter among the various alien species. Some of them were making sounds that their translators couldn't even process. Your ship? An ethereal said, its suit glowing with amusement. Your tiny vessel couldn't scratch the paint on our hulls. Our main guns are larger than your entire ship, added a Klaxon representative. Korvash held up a hand for silence. Captain Rodriguez, I appreciate that you want to negotiate from a position of strength. But you have no strength here. Except reality. What if I could prove it? Rodriguez asked. Prove what? That our ship could destroy yours. Korvash leaned forward in his seat. You want to fight our dreadnoughts with your little toy? One shot, Rodriguez said. Just one. If our weapon fails to destroy one of your ships, we'll accept your offer without any more discussion. But if it succeeds, then what? Korvash asked. Then you'll treat us as equals, not as potential slaves. The aliens looked at each other with confusion and amusement. They had never heard such a ridiculous proposal. You're serious? A Zephyrite asked. Completely serious. Korvash was quiet for a long moment. Rodriguez could see him thinking. The aliens were so confident in their superiority that they saw no risk in her proposal. To them, it was like a mouse challenging a lion. Very well, he said finally. One shot. When your weapon fails, you will submit to hegemony authority without further resistance. Agreed, Rodriguez said. Choose your target, Korvash said, gesturing to the holographic display showing his 3 dreadnoughts. Rodriguez studied the ships. They were identical in design, each one a kilometer of metal and weapons. Thousands of crew members aboard each vessel. The center ship, she said. The Eternal Dominion, Korvash said with pride. My personal flagship. 5,000 crew members, enough firepower to destroy a moon. I'll need time to prepare our weapon, Rodriguez said. How long? 1 hour, Korvash nodded. 1 hour. Then we will see how quickly your delusion dies. As Rodriguez left the chamber, she could hear the aliens already celebrating their victory. They were so certain that humanity would fail, that they had already begun discussing how to punish Earth for its arrogance. They had no idea what was coming. Back on the Defiant, Rodriguez gathered her crew one final time. This is it, she said. In 1 hour, we're going to show the galaxy that humanity isn't just another species to be conquered. Captain, Park said nervously, what if the weapon doesn't work as expected? Then Earth will have to find another way to deal with these aliens, Rodriguez replied. But I have faith in human ingenuity. She looked at each of her crew members. They were scared, but they were ready. They understood what was at stake. Kim, prep the torpedo. Chen, make sure our engines are ready for immediate departure after the shot. Park, record everything. Earth needs to see what happens here. Yes, Captain, they replied in unison. Outside the ship, the three dreadnoughts waited like sleeping giants. In less than an hour, one of them would be gone. The question was whether anyone would survive to tell the story. The hour passed like a year. Captain Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Defiant, watching the alien dreadnoughts through the main window. The ships hung in space like metal mountains, their hulls glowing with the energy of their massive reactors. Weapon status, she asked for the 10th time. Singularity torpedo is charged and ready, Kim replied. All containment fields stable. Quantum gravity generator operating at optimal levels. Communications? The aliens are broadcasting their confidence to the entire station, Park reported. Half the galaxy is watching this through live feeds. Admiral Corvash is telling everyone that this will be a lesson to any species that thinks it can challenge the hegemony. Rodriguez nodded grimly. That was probably for the best. When this was over, everyone would know that humanity couldn't be pushed around. Captain, Chen said from his engineering station, I'm detecting movement from the dreadnoughts. They're positioning themselves for optimal viewing angles. Through the window, Rodriguez could see the massive ships slowly rotating. They wanted to make sure every sensor, every camera, every witness would have a clear view of humanity's failure. The Eternal Dominion, Admiral Corvash's flagship, moved to the center of the formation. Its hull was covered in weapon ports and shield generators. Energy fields shimmered around it like heat waves. It was a ship built to inspire fear and respect. Incoming transmission from Admiral Corvash, Park announced. Put him on screen. The view screen flickered to life, showing Corvash's reptilian face. Behind him, Rodriguez could see the bridge of his ship. Dozens of alien officers working at stations that looked more like art installations than control panels. Captain Rodriguez, Corvash said, his voice full of amusement. My crew is eager to see this demonstration of human technology. Please show us what your tiny ship can do. Are you sure you want to proceed? Rodriguez asked. This is your last chance to reconsider our offer of equal partnership. Corvash laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Equal partnership? Captain, my ship alone has more firepower than your entire species. End this foolishness and accept your place in the galaxy. Very well, Rodriguez said. Don't say we didn't warn you. She cut the transmission and turned to her crew. This is it. Everyone ready? Engines online and ready for emergency departure, Chen reported. Communications recording everything, Park confirmed. Torpedo armed and target locked, Kim said. Her finger hovered over the firing control. Rodriguez took a deep breath. In the next few minutes, everything would change. Either humanity would prove itself as a force to be respected, or Earth would become another slave world in the alien empire. Fire, she said quietly. Kim pressed the control. The Singularity torpedo launched from the Defiant with almost no visible sign. It was a small, dark object that moved without any obvious propulsion system. Compared to the massive plasma bolts that alien ships used, it looked like nothing at all. On the alien ships, Rodriguez knew their sensors would be tracking the torpedo. But they wouldn't understand what they were seeing. Their instruments would detect a small object moving at moderate speed toward the Eternal Dominion. Nothing threatening. Nothing that could possibly damage a ship protected by shields that could stop nuclear weapons. Torpedo tracking true, Kim reported. Impact in 30 seconds. The aliens aren't even trying to stop it, Park said, monitoring their communications. They think it's some kind of joke. Rodriguez watched the torpedo's progress on her tactical display. It was moving steadily toward the center of the alien formation, drawing closer to the massive dreadnought with every second. Admiral Corvash is broadcasting to his fleet, Park continued. He's telling them to watch how easily their shields deflect primitive human weapons. 20 seconds to impact, Kim announced. Through the window, Rodriguez could see the Eternal Dominion's shields brightening. Energy fields flowed across the ship's hull like liquid light. The aliens were powering up their defenses to maximum strength, probably just to make their demonstration more impressive. 10 seconds. Rodriguez held her breath. Everything they had worked for, everything humanity hoped to achieve in space, depended on the next few moments. 5 seconds, 4, 3, 2, 1, impact. For a split second, nothing seemed to happen. The torpedo struck the alien ship's shields and simply vanished, as if it had been absorbed or destroyed. On the alien ships, Rodriguez imagined celebrations beginning. proof that human weapons were useless against superior alien technology. Then space began to twist. It started as a tiny distortion near the center of the Eternal Dominion, no bigger than a marble, but the effects spread outward at the speed of light. Reality itself seemed to bend and stretch as the artificial singularity formed. The gravitational forces were incredible. In the first nanosecond, they reached levels normally found only at the edge of black holes. The alien ship's shields, designed to stop energy weapons, offered no protection against the fundamental force of gravity. The Eternal Dominion's hull began to stretch and deform. Metal that had been forged in the hearts of stars was pulled apart like clay. The ship's massive structure twisted as different parts of it experienced different gravitational forces. Then the secondary effects began. As the ship's hull tore apart, its internal systems were exposed to the gravitational field. The fusion reactors that powered the vessel couldn't maintain containment when their chamber walls were being stretched and compressed at the molecular level. The first reactor explosion sent a shockwave through the dying ship, then the second, then the third. In less than 10 seconds, the kilometer-long dreadnought was gone. Not destroyed in the usual sense. There was no wreckage, no debris field, no floating pieces. The ship had been unmade at the atomic level, its matter torn apart by forces that no conventional technology could resist. Where the Eternal Dominion had been, there was now only empty space and the expanding cloud of elementary particles. The bridge of the Defiant was completely silent. Even though they had expected this result, seeing it happen was overwhelming. A ship that had taken decades to build and carried 5,000 crew members had been erased in seconds. "My God," Chen whispered. "Captain," Park said, her voice shaking, "the alien communications are going crazy. They're screaming, asking what happened, demanding explanations." Rodriguez looked at the tactical display. The two surviving dreadnoughts were moving away from where their flagship had been, their crews probably in shock and panic. "Are they targeting us?" she asked. "No," Kim reported. "Their weapon systems are still offline. I don't think they know how to respond." Rodriguez activated the ship's communication system and broadcast on all frequencies. She wanted every alien in the system to hear this. "This is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the United Earthship Defiant," she said, her voice calm and professional. "We did not want this to happen. We came here seeking friendship and cooperation. Instead, we were offered slavery." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Let this demonstration serve as a warning. Humanity will not be conquered. We will not be enslaved. We will not bow to anyone who mistakes size for strength." Another pause. "Admiral Corvash, if you're listening, you were wrong about one thing. Size isn't everything. Sometimes the smallest weapon is the most dangerous." She cut the transmission and turned to her crew. "Chen, get us out of here. Maximum speed." "Where to, Captain?" "Earth. We need to warn them that the galaxy just became a much more dangerous place." As the Defiant turned away from Nexus Station, Rodriguez could see alien ships beginning to move. Some were fleeing in panic. Others were moving into defensive formations, afraid that the humans might have more weapons like the one they had just witnessed. But Rodriguez wasn't interested in conquest. She had made her point. Humanity was not prey to be hunted by galactic predators. The aliens would have to find someone else to bully. The question now was what they would do with this knowledge. Would they leave Earth alone? Or would they come back with an entire fleet determined to destroy humanity before it could threaten their empire? Rodriguez suspected she would find out soon enough. "Jump to hyperspace in 30 seconds, Chen announced. "Park, send a message to Earth Command," Rodriguez ordered. "Tell them the first contact mission is complete. We're coming home, and we're bringing news that will change everything." The stars blurred as the Defiant jumped to hyperspace, leaving behind a galaxy that would never look at humanity the same way again. The silence in the alien fleet lasted exactly 17 seconds. Then every ship near Nexus Station erupted in panic. Admiral Corvash floated in an escape pod, one of only a few hundred survivors from the Eternal Dominion. His flagship, his pride, his symbol of Vaxari dominance, gone. Simply gone. 5,000 crew members, decades of construction, the most advanced weapons in the galaxy, all erased in an instant. "Sir," his communications officer said through the pod's radio, "we're receiving emergency transmissions from across the fleet. They're asking for orders." Corvash stared out the pod's small window at the empty space where his ship had been. No wreckage, no debris, No trace that the massive vessel had ever existed. It was as if reality itself had decided the ship didn't belong. "What orders can I give?" he asked quietly. "How do you fight an enemy that can unmake matter itself?" On the bridge of the Vaxari dreadnought Iron Fist, Captain Veltar was trying to understand what his sensors had recorded. The readings made no sense. One moment the Eternal Dominion had been there, solid and real. The next moment it wasn't. "Analysis report," he demanded. His science officer, a young Vaxari named Kess, looked up from her console with confusion in her yellow eyes. "Sir, the weapon appears to have created some kind of gravitational anomaly. Our instruments detected space-time distortion consistent with—" She paused, checking her readings again. "With a miniature black hole." "That's impossible," Veltar said. "Black holes require massive amounts of matter. You can't just create one." "Apparently humans can," Kess replied. Across the system, similar conversations were happening on dozens of alien ships. The Zephirites, who prided themselves on understanding the fundamental harmonics of the universe, found their scientists unable to explain what they had witnessed. The Klaxon swarm, with their collective intelligence, processed the data through millions of minds and came up with the same impossible conclusion. The ethereals, beings of pure energy who thought they understood all the forces of the cosmos, discovered that their knowledge had a massive gap. They had never considered that gravity itself could be weaponized. On Nexus Station, emergency sessions were being called in every council chamber. Representatives who had been preparing to celebrate humanity's submission were now trying to figure out what the tiny human ship had just done to the most powerful vessel in the hegemony fleet. The human broadcast was being replayed on every channel in every language, across the entire galactic network. Captain Rodriguez's calm words carried a message that no one could ignore. Humanity was not helpless, and they would not be slaves. "We need to respond," said Council Member Zixthera, a Zephyrite whose crystalline form was resonating with frequencies of fear. "If we do nothing, every species in the galaxy will think they can challenge us." "Respond how?" demanded General Thok of the Klaxon swarm. "They destroyed our most powerful ship with a single weapon. What if they have more of those torpedoes? How many could they possibly have?" asked Prime Ethereal Luxandra. "Such technology must be incredibly resource-intensive." "We don't know," Admiral Korvash said as his escape pod was brought aboard the Iron Fist. "We know nothing about their capabilities. We assumed they were primitive because their ship was small." "Their ship was small," Zixthara pointed out. "And yet it carried a weapon that could destroy the largest vessel in our fleet," Korvash replied. "Perhaps we need to reconsider our assumptions about the relationship between size and power." The debate raged for hours. Some council members wanted immediate retaliation against Earth. Others argued for caution until they understood human technology better. A few suggested trying to negotiate, to find out what humans actually wanted. "What they want is clear," General Thok said. "They want to be treated as equals." "Equals." Zixthera's form rang with indignation. "They're a single-planet species that only achieved space travel 50 years ago. How can they be our equals?" "Because they just proved they can destroy us," Admiral Korvash said quietly. Meanwhile, the Defiant was racing through hyperspace toward Earth. Captain Rodriguez sat in her quarters writing her report for Earth Command. "How do you explain that first contact with an advanced galactic civilization had resulted in humanity demonstrating the most powerful weapon anyone had ever seen?" "Captain," Communications Officer Park's voice came over the intercom. "We're receiving long-range transmissions from several alien species. They want to establish direct contact with Earth." Rodriguez wasn't surprised. Word of what had happened at Nexus Station was probably spreading across the galaxy. Some species would want to form alliances with the humans who could make ships disappear. Others would want to negotiate before humanity decided they were threats. "Any word from the hegemony?" "Nothing official, but we're picking up a lot of military chatter. Their fleets are being recalled to defensive positions around their core worlds." Rodriguez nodded. That was probably smart. If she were in their position, she would be worried about what other surprises humanity might have. 3 days later, the Defiant dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. Earth hung ahead of them, blue and beautiful and completely unaware that everything had changed. Earth Command. "This is the Defiant requesting priority approach," Rodriguez transmitted. "Defiant, this is Earth Command. You're earlier than expected. How did the first contact mission go?" Rodriguez looked at her crew. Chen was grinning. Kim looked satisfied. Park seemed nervous about the implications of what they had done. Earth Command recommend we discuss this in person, but I can tell you that humanity is no longer unknown in the galaxy. Copy that, Defiant. You're cleared for direct approach to Luna Base. As they flew toward the moon, Rodriguez could see the construction yards where Earth was building its first generation of interstellar vessels. Compared to alien dreadnoughts, they were tiny. But Rodriguez had learned that size didn't matter as much as everyone thought. At Luna Base, Rodriguez found herself in a room full of admirals, scientists, and politicians, all eager to hear about humanity's first encounter with galactic civilization. So they offered to make us a protectorate, Admiral Chen summarized after Rodriguez finished her report. Essentially slavery with diplomatic language, and that's correct, sir. And when you refused, they threatened us with their fleet. 3 dreadnoughts, each over a kilometer long, armed with enough firepower to destroy a planet, and you destroyed one of them with a single torpedo. Rodriguez nodded. The Singularity torpedo performed exactly as designed. Complete molecular dissociation of the target vessel. The room was quiet for a moment. Everyone was processing the implications. Captain, said Dr. Sarah Chen, the scientist who had developed the gravity manipulation technology, how did the aliens react to the demonstration? Shock, fear, and panic mostly. They had never seen anything like it. Their entire understanding of warfare is based on bigger ships and more powerful energy weapons. They never considered gravity as a weapon. And now, asked President Martinez, now they know that humanity can defend itself. The question is what they'll do with that knowledge. As if in answer to her words, an aide entered the room and handed Admiral Chen a data pad. Captain Rodriguez, the Admiral said after reading the message, it seems you won't have to wonder much longer. We're receiving diplomatic requests from over 40 alien species. They all want to establish formal relations with Earth. What about the hegemony? Radio silence. But our deep space sensors are detecting massive fleet movements throughout their territory. They're pulling ships back to defend their core worlds. Rodriguez smiled. They're scared. Should they be? Rodriguez considered the question. Earth had more Singularity torpedoes under construction, but not many. The technology was complex and resource-intensive. If the entire hegemony fleet attacked at once, humanity might not be able to stop them all, but they didn't know that. Sir, Rodriguez said finally, I think they should be very careful about how they treat their neighbors from now on. 6 months later, Captain Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UES Defender, humanity's newest and most advanced starship. It was still small by alien standards, only 300 meters long. But it carried enough Singularity torpedoes to level a small fleet. Around Earth, construction yards were working around the clock to build more ships like it. Not because humanity wanted to conquer anyone, but because the galaxy had proven to be a dangerous place where strength was the only language that everyone understood. The first diplomatic missions were already departing for species that had requested Earth's friendship. Trade agreements were being negotiated. Technology exchanges were being planned. And somewhere in the depths of hegemony space, Admiral Korvash was writing his own reports, trying to explain to his superiors how a species they had planned to enslave had become the most feared military force in the galaxy. The tiny human ship had indeed changed everything. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again, but perhaps more importantly, no species would ever again assume that being small meant being weak. The humans had taught everyone a valuable lesson about the difference between size and power, and they had done it with just one shot.